Hello and welcome to the history of the Doctor. The Doctor is a Time Lord, a human-like alien who protects the Earth, along with countless other worlds, throughout space and time, from such menaces as the Daleks and the Master. Unlike the rest of his race of time travelers, he uses time travel to interfere with events, which is forbade by his race, in an effort to protect civilizations from a variety of threats. He is famous for his time-traveling ship, the TARDIS, and his sonic screwdriver, and the ability to regenerate into a new form with a slightly different personality if he gets injured or is on the verge of death, though his species is only normally able to regenerate 12 times. To date, the Doctor has 13 regenerations, the 13th being given to him, along with a new set of 12 regenerations. The Doctor is an alien from the planet Gallifrey, a member of the race known as the Time Lords. He travels through time and space in a spacecraft called the TARDIS, frequently with human companions, averting any crisis that comes along using science, technology, and wit. Although the series is titled Doctor Who, this is not the character's name. He is only ever referenced as the Doctor, and his real name remains mysteriously unknown. From the 9th to 11th incarnation, the Doctor was believed to be the last surviving member of the Time Lords, and was under the impression that he, during his War Doctor incarnation, had destroyed Gallifrey in order to end a devastating time war against the Daleks. He later learned differently. The Time Lords of Gallifrey impose a limit as to how many regenerations one may have before final death, 12 changes or 13 incarnations. Due to the War Doctor not accepting the name the Doctor, and the 10th Doctor undergoing an aborted regeneration at one point, the 11th Doctor believed himself to be the last incarnation. The Time Lords, however, on the request of Clara Oswald, bestowed upon him a new regeneration cycle, allowing him to ultimately transform into the 12th Doctor, or technically the Doctor's 14th incarnation. Abilities: Regeneration. When a Time Lord is dying, either due to old age or mortal injury, they are able to use a process called regeneration. Regeneration is a process in which all the cells in the body are replaced with new ones, with the ultimate result being the Time Lord having a completely new appearance. Even though the Doctor has changed numerous times, he still remains the same person inside, and remains a force for good, if neutral, even though his priorities, personality, and memories sometimes change, due to the fact that regeneration alters brain chemistry as well. The regeneration process has been portrayed as either a simple fade between two incarnations, a glowing effect that reveals the next incarnation, or one incarnation morphing into the next. In recent portrayals, it has been portrayed as the incarnation generating a radiating gold, orange, or even white fire-like energy while transforming into the next incarnation. Sometimes the regeneration energy manifests in an explosive discharge, which could damage or destroy anything or anyone around it. The blunt of the discharge is directed through the hands and head, and could be made more powerful and violent if the energy was built up through stalling the process. It was also made violent and even accompanied by a powerful shockwave if a new set of regenerations was given. The Doctor has been able to generate this regeneration energy at will, in fiery wisps or as a yellow light, using it to heal non-life-threatening injuries, and somewhat stall certain terminal conditions. However, all Time Lords have a finite amount of this energy, which means using it in a manner that could lessen the ability to regenerate. Essentially, the Doctor will lose the ability to regenerate after 12 or 13 regenerations and incarnations, although he was later given a new set of regenerations by the Time Lords, the process of which caused a giant discharge of regeneration energy and a shockwave that expanded several miles. The regeneration process could also cause a brief period of emotional or mental instability, erratic behavior, mood swings, random spasms, and a lack of motor skills, confusion, memory loss, and unconsciousness, which is called regeneration trauma. This period lasted for hours, and also allowed the Doctor temporary abilities such as a healing factor and superhuman strength, though which ability he receives is highly random. However, some regenerations happen without any period of trauma, such as the 8th Doctor transformation into the War Doctor. Superhuman strength. He possesses an above-average strength, as he once broke down steel doors, chopped a brick in half, and ripped a stone arm off a statue. This, however, is a random occurrence and an immediate after effect of his regeneration. As such, abilities only last 15 hours after the occurrence. Superhuman senses. He is capable of sensing time disturbances and perceives all possible timelines, as well as senses attuned to gravity, spatial location, and acceleration or speed, as well as a heightened sense of smell, sharp enough to identify the atmospheric compensation. Taste, can identify an age and chemical composition of an object by licking it. Hearing and eyesight, can read a name tag from several hundred yards away, as well as see in the dark like a cat. Superhuman durability. While the level of his durability is undefined, he has been able to survive harsh conditions, which include, but not limited to, the low pressure and coldness of space without a suit, though he still needs air, sub-zero temperatures, extreme heats of at least 525 degrees Fahrenheit, multiple electric shocks, X-ray radiation, and falls from hundreds of feet, though the fourth Doctor was injured by such a fall to a point where he regenerated into his fifth incarnation. He is also more resilient to radiation, allowing him to be barely harmed by an X-ray machine's radiation, though it was 500,000 rads of radiation that caused the 10th Doctor to regenerate into the 11th, in what seemed to be hours after exposure. He is also resilient to temporal disturbances, allowing him to be fully aware of changes in time, especially if he is at the epicenter of this change, such as when his supposed death at Lake Silencio was averted and all of reality began to collapse. The Doctor himself ended up in ancient Rome, fully aware of what happened. He is immune to alcohol or wine. Normal sleep-inducing drugs take twice as long to take their effect on him as it does on a normal human being, and are not able to keep him asleep for long. Omnilingualism. He is able to speak and understand virtually every language in existence. Although his ship, the TARDIS, is said to translate for his companions, the Doctor possesses this ability on his own. He can even communicate with some animals, such as cats and even dinosaurs. Superhuman intelligence. The Doctor is vastly smarter and thinks faster than most beings in the universe. He has an almost universal knowledge of nearly every species in the universe, as well as an expert on technology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, history, non-human biology, genetics, and nearly every field except, ironically, human medicine. As he says, he is not a medical doctor. Longevity. The second Doctor stated that Time Lords can live forever, barring accidents, thanks to regeneration and his own natural longevity. The Doctor has lived for many centuries. His first incarnation alone existed for over 450 years. Time Lords in general consider 700 years to be middle-aged, though it is unknown if that is just for one incarnation or their entire lives. By the time of the 7th Doctor, he is stated to be approximately 956 years old. However, the 9th Doctor says he has forgotten his age and restarts it from 900 years, while the 11th Doctor guessed that he was about 1,200, though he has also said that he had forgotten. By the time he has regenerated into the 12th Doctor, he can be estimated to be at least 2,000 years old, if not older. The first Doctor was played by William Hartnell. The first Doctor was the youngest incarnation of the Doctor, but had the most physical aged appearance, having grown old through a natural lifespan. This Doctor was an unreadable, guarded figure who was at first slow to trust newcomers who learnt of him. This Doctor was often irritable. He made his anger obvious. He was protective of the young women he took as companions. They reminded him of his granddaughter Susan, his very first companion. This Doctor was a brilliant, often short-tempered scientist and keen strategist. He used his signet ring to help get himself through ordeals due to his physical age impeding him. He stole a TARDIS and took his granddaughter with him, joyriding through all of space and time, without a clue how to drive the thing. He played deadly games with the celestial toy maker. He fooled Roman emperors, and he foiled each and every plan of the Daleks. After preventing Cybermen from absorbing Earth's energy, and with his body wearing a bit thin, the first Doctor changed into his second incarnation. He reappeared in the 2017 Christmas special Twice Upon a Time, where he teamed up with his 12th incarnation. He was played by David Bradley. The second Doctor. The second Doctor was portrayed by Patrick Troughton. The second Doctor, in contrast to his previous incarnation, was warm and wise. He was as surprised and frightened of alien menaces as those who faced them with him. He had a knack for manipulation and deception. His predecessor would refer to him as a clown, due to his bumbling nature. He loved tooling on his recorder and carried around a 500-year-old diary, trying to record his travels, but ended up discarding it. He wore a big fur coat that dwarfed him, tying it closed with twine. A cosmic hobo with a Beatles-esque mop of black hair. He was forever getting himself in and out of trouble. The second Doctor was forced to undergo regeneration, essentially submit to execution by the Time Lords as punishment for interfering with the affairs of many worlds. The third Doctor. The third Doctor was portrayed by John Pertwee. The third Doctor was a more dashing figure than his predecessors. He was described by his first incarnation as a dandy. He had a knack for inventing gadgets and was skilled at martial arts, particularly Venetian Aikido, and owned a vintage car named Bessie. His initially continuous relationship with Brigadier Stewart softened into a close friendship during his exile on Earth, lasting through future generations. Despite not always agreeing with his actions, he also displayed a great affection for his female companions, particularly Jo Grant. He was a gallant action hero who was very protective of his companions. Radiation exposure from visiting Metebus III led to his regeneration. The fourth Doctor. The fourth Doctor was portrayed by Tom Baker. The fourth Doctor was more eccentric than his previous incarnations, and was the first to seem young, rarely without his very long scarf. He always carried jelly babies in his pockets, using them as bluffs, gifts, and distractions, and occasionally snacks. He relied on his considerable charm, luck, and experience to get through bad situations. Although he retained his fondness for Earth, he ended his regular association with UNIT almost immediately upon his regeneration, and only occasionally returned to the planet. However, he had not properly resigned from his position. He hated to work and preferred traveling, but liked history. He usually traveled with only one companion at a time, except at the start and near the end of his life. He regenerated as a result of a fall suffered during an encounter with the Master. On this unique occasion, a faceless in-between incarnation of the Doctor, known as the Watcher, assisted in the regeneration. The fifth Doctor. The fifth Doctor was portrayed by Peter Davison. The fifth Doctor was fond of cricket and wore a stick of celery on his lapel as a safety precaution for his allergy of certain gases in the Proximus range in the spectrum. After a difficult regeneration, this Doctor displayed energy, compassion, and innocence not seen in his predecessors. His character was very human and vulnerable. Like them, he used improv as the best way out of a sticky situation. The fifth Doctor was the first incarnation since the first Doctor to go hands-free and forego the usage of a sonic screwdriver after having it destroyed. He occasionally wore glasses, even though he didn't need them. He only wore them to make himself look clever. He was often the first Doctor to sacrifice himself for another. When he and Perry Brown were dying from spectrotoxemia with only one dose of the antidote available, he gave her the cure rather than taking it for himself. The sixth Doctor. The sixth Doctor was portrayed by Colin Baker, not related to Tom Baker. The sixth Doctor was a grandiose and eloquent incarnation. He sported a multicolor wardrobe. It was often commented upon, occasionally leading to him being mistaken for a jester. This Doctor loved a good quote, often making one he deemed appropriate during an adventure. He also proved to have great acting skills on numerous occasions. His manic personality and incredible wit could shade into moral passion, but his lack of concern for little things disgusted his companions. He was also capable of violent actions, much more so than his past lives, even seeing logic in murder. Like the fourth Doctor, he spent most of his travels with a single companion. The circumstances of his regeneration are unclear, as he begins to transform after the TARDIS is snatched mid-flight by an evil Time Lord known as the Randy. The seventh Doctor. The seventh Doctor was portrayed by Sylvester McCoy. The seventh Doctor had a voice touched by Scottish burr. A keen strategist and scientist, especially early in his life. Light-hearted, this Doctor was a planner of the highest order, embracing the complexities of time travel and his ability to manipulate the plan for the future. The Seventh Doctor fully embraced his role as Time Lord, even if it risked alienating his companions. However, he wished to help heal psychological scars which his companions suffered from. He spent most of his later travels with a single companion. The Seventh Doctor died as a result of a botched medical procedure, a human doctor not being aware of his double circulatory system. The Eighth Doctor. The Eighth Doctor was portrayed by Paul McGann. The Eighth Doctor showed a romantic and sensitive side not displayed by previous Doctors, less morally flexible than his immediate predecessor. The Eighth Doctor suffered from bouts of amnesia, first after his regeneration and again after Gallifrey was destroyed following the war with the enemy, but was later recreated. Unlike other Doctors, the Eighth spent his travels crossing not only time, but into parallel universes and alternate timelines, making his personal timeline harder to piece together. This Doctor refused to take part in the Time War, but after sustaining mortal injuries in a spaceship crash, he was given the rare opportunity to choose the form in his next life, and he chose to be a warrior in order to fight the war. The War Doctor. The War Doctor was portrayed by the late John Hurt. The War Doctor's incarnation was specifically chosen to be that of a warrior in the last great Time War, and the regeneration was aided by the Sisterhood of Karn. His later incarnation stated that his actions broke the promise of the name of the Doctor. As such, although the label War Doctor had been ascribed to him, he did not in fact accept the name Doctor, and such he is not counted in the numbering of the incarnations. Shortly before regeneration due to old age, the War Doctor encountered his 10th and 11th incarnations, and between them they actually came up with an option that allowed the Time War to end without destroying Gallifrey. Due to the laws of time, however, the War Doctor was unable to remember this, and thus following incarnations believed that he destroyed Gallifrey, and such disowned the War Doctor incarnation. The Ninth Doctor. The Ninth Doctor was portrayed by Christopher Eccleston. The Ninth Doctor considered himself the sole Time Lord survivor of the Time War. He had displayed much of the playfulness of his previous incarnations, but was emotionally and psychologically scarred by the war and his role in it, which sometimes resulted in detachment that was interpreted by some as cruelty. He cared deeply for Rose. He began to heal thanks to her. Similarly to his first incarnation, this Doctor liked to tease others by pretending not to remember names. He also made dry jokes when facing danger or to diffuse tension. By all accounts, this incarnation was very short-lived compared to the others. He regenerated after absorbing the energy of the time vortex in order to save the life of his companion, Rose Tyler. The 10th Doctor. The 10th and best Doctor was portrayed by David Tennant. The 10th Doctor had a manic personality with a fondness for human pop culture references. However, his more outgoing personality traits largely existed to hide leftover emotional trauma from the Time War. Like his ninth, he was unable to retain his memory of having worked with the War and 11th Doctors to change the outcome. While he had a bright, playful side, darker traits occasionally emerged. He continued his previous incarnation's love for Rose Tyler, though he was unable or unwilling to express his exact feelings. He experienced other romances on occasion, including with historical figures Madame du Pompadour and Queen Elizabeth I. However, they all ended badly. He was also the first Doctor to explicitly fear and dodge regeneration, because he had grown attached to his attributes and felt like it was a form of death and loss of identity. As such, when shot by a Dalek about to regenerate, he was able to use his cunning to abort the regeneration, though it still counted towards the limit imposed by the Time Lords. When the time came for him to regenerate for real, this time from radiation exposure absorbed in order to save the life of his elderly companion Wilfred, he was completely heartbroken before accepting his destiny, but not before visiting every companion he had ever known, in this life and before. The 11th Doctor. The 11th Doctor is portrayed by Matt Smith. The 11th Doctor was smug about his abilities and exhibited a renewed youthful enthusiasm for adventure. He had keen observational skills, an obsession with seeming trivial. This Doctor could quickly turn frantically angry and ruthless when events demanded. He frequently referred to himself as being old, showing his age on more than a few occasions. He often sacrificed himself if it meant saving others on a universal scale. This doctor's concern for his companions was greater than his predecessors. He left Amy Pond and Rory Williams back home to protect them, though eventually resumed travels with them, which ended in heartbreak. After this, the Doctor became darker and more depressed. Claiming he was retired, his attitude changed as he got to know Clara Oswald, whom he then invited to join him in the TARDIS before she fell to her death, breaking the Doctor's hearts again. He later became aware that Clara was impossibly shattered through time. He previously encountered another incarnation of Clara, who had died as a Dalek convert. Later he found a third Clara, this one living in modern-day London, and the two were eventually able to learn why she is shattered through time. He went on to spend many centuries, it is unknown how many, as a guardian of a town called Christmas, on the planet Tenzalore. There he aged into an ancient old man and prepared to die as his final incarnation. The Time Lords of Gallifrey, however, no longer wiped from history and on Clara's request, were able to renew his regeneration cycle, and he was able to transform once more. The 12th Doctor. The 12th Doctor is portrayed by Peter Capaldi. The 12th Doctor doesn't seem to remember aspects of his past, though he senses some familiarity when similar events occur. Unlike other incarnations who grew up into their appearances, this version of the Doctor seems fairly self-conscious, having gone from a young man to a much older one despite being renewed. He also notices that he resembles Lobos, a character he met in the fires of Pompeii, and he has an unexplained Scottish accent. The Doctor continued his travels with Clara until her death. The Doctor revived her and she went on her own travels in time and space with Lady Me. The Doctor was unaware of this as he has lost his memories of Clara. The Doctor was later joined by Nardul and a new companion, a woman known as Bill Potts. At the end of the series, Bill became a Cyberman. In the 2017 Christmas special, Twice Upon a Time, the Doctor teams up with his first incarnation and met a glass avatar of Bill. He also met a World War I captain. After bidding farewell to the avatars of Bill and Nardul and regaining his memories of Clara, the Doctor returned to the TARDIS to regenerate. The 13th Doctor. The 13th Doctor is portrayed by Jodie Whittaker. Unlike the previous Doctors, this incarnation is female. She made her first appearance in the 2017 Christmas special, Twice Upon a Time, where shortly after regeneration she was ejected from the TARDIS, which teleported away, leaving the Doctor plummeting to Earth. Thank you for watching the History of the Doctor. Special thanks to the Heroes Wiki for all information you heard today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell if you want to be notified on new episodes. And have a nice day. Bye-bye.